Of course it's appropriate to block. Can't let them hit you. And nobody's a Jedi, right? Maybe there are some, but you can't do all waza every single time. Of course it's appropriate to block. It's okay to block. I've said that loads, all right? But it's how you do it and the strategy of doing it, all right? One, you have to have the good kihon. You have to care about improving your kihon. Two, you have to care about creating the waza together with your partner, rather than trying to just do waza because you decided you wanted to do it. Hi folks, it's Andy. Welcome to this week's Kendo Rant. We have some fantastic questions once again for you this week. We're going to jump to them in just a moment. My eyes are going to be darting left and right here. We've got the screen over here with the questions on. We've got the YouTube camera there. We've got the Instagram live going on here. So we're doing everything all at once, all right? We're spinning all the plates, but we can do it. We can do it together. I know it. Okay, we're going to jump to the questions. But before we do, don't forget, satisfy the YouTube ninjas by liking, sharing, subscribing, leaving a comment on this YouTube video. Leave a comment down below using the word Kendo. What a great Kendo channel. Best Kendo video I've ever seen in my entire life. Something to that effect. And then we know that the YouTube ninjas will get more people starting Kendo. Don't forget to do that, all right? You know, that's how it works. And more importantly than that, don't forget to support the channel. Support the channel by shopping at KendoStar.com. That's the true win-win for you there. KendoStar is the best Kendo equipment website in the galaxy, in the history of the human race and the future of it as well. Of course, I would say that because I own the place, but you know it's true, all right? Support the channel by shopping at KendoStar. Don't buy twice, buy right first time round. You know we're the best at what we do. So shop at KendoStar. Okay, right, so we have got Instagram Live going at the same time. I've started streaming these live on Instagram. Hello, Instagram. So if you don't follow us on Instagram, get us followed on Instagram. What are you doing? Right, let's get to these questions, all right? You wonderful Instagram followers, by the way, if you have questions as we go along, just whack them in the comments there and I'll answer them as we go. We don't have a massive amount of questions today, to be fair. It's just a handful. So, yeah, if you've got any from Instagram, pop them in the questions. Right, okay. Hi Fish Sensei, the Bogu material questions this week. So this is from last week. There's a comment on last week's video. Reminding me of two Bogu questions I've been meaning to ask. I'm now in a position to advise beginner students at university level for their first Bogu. 1. How does a standard men accommodate different facial shapes? Some faces are long and narrow, while some are not so long and wider. I have a pretty standard head and face for an East Asian, so an off-the-shelf men is never a problem for me. Now that I'm helping students from all backgrounds and shapes and sizes, I'm unsure if the men is really fitting that well for them. For them, it's their first time ever putting on a men, so they have no idea what it's supposed to feel like, and if I ask them how it feels, all they can say is it fits okay, I think. But looking at them in Keiko, it really doesn't look right to me, so the question is, if we take all the measurements correctly, is there anything we can do to mould a men to fit better? 2, similarly, as a man, I'm unsure how a Bogu should fit on a female. Relative positions between tare, door, and skidare seem to be vary a lot from female to female. So when measuring female students for Bogu, what can we do to make sure the Bogu pieces will fit correctly on them? Thank you. Okay. Okay. A quick question from the comments there. Comments on Instagram. Jimmy says, hello, may I know which video should I watch after finishing Zero to Shodan? I've got a pilot episode of Zero to Sandan, which I think is about kata. I haven't managed to pick up on that, but I have done several other videos that are instructional. I've done ones about how to improve your men strikes, how to improve your kote strikes, how to improve your door strikes, how to do kaishido, how to do hiwaza, how to do suburi. There's loads of stuff on there, okay? So watch them all. Watch them all. Right, back to this question. This is about... how the first is about getting the right sort of men size considering different facial shapes. So the fact is, right, although to sort of our eyes people's faces are obviously, everybody's different, and everyone does have a slightly different facial shape and structure. The uchiwa of the men is designed in such a way that as you use it, it molds to fit. So it's quite rare that someone's facial structure or shape is so unusual that a stock Bogu size is kind of completely out there in terms of sizing. All right, sometimes it happens, but it's not all that often. And sometimes what you find is, like, if somebody's face is like long but quite thin, they might need like a slightly bigger size than they normally would take in a stock size, and it will actually fit totally fine. So very occasionally, someone's measurements and the stock sizes don't necessarily match completely, and we need to just swap it out. But it's actually very, very rare. It's not that common at all. I'd say that 95% of people, possibly even more, the stock sizes are fit to a pretty adequate level. Now, that doesn't mean that they're on the exact same sort of level of fit as a made to order size, because that's different once again. So obviously, if somebody has a particularly unique facial structure or shape, then made to order is the way to go. But it's not. I haven't seen it where that's absolutely necessary. You know, what you'll tend to find was, and to be honest, this is not just a university thing, but most issues with whether the men is fitting properly or whether it looks like it's fitting properly, like a men that fits perfectly can look like it doesn't fit very well based on the way it's tied to the head. And obviously beginners are not very good at doing that, all right, because they're not very well practiced, all right. So if they're tying the knot too low in the himo, if they're not aligning the monomi properly when they set it on their face in the first place, these sort of things make it look like the men's not fitting that well, even though it's the right size for them. So I've seen that in more cases than, you know, the men itself is actually not the right size. Regarding in terms of how it should fit on females versus males, this is a thing, right? The relative positions between the tare do and skidare, right, or the ago, right, they're different for everybody, right? There isn't a definite, right? If you're very tall, then there can be a bigger gap between the bottom of the ago, or the skidare, and the top of the domine, right? They're not really, it's like, sometimes they might, if you're quite short, you might not be able to help them overlapping, right? But they don't have to overlap. So I think some people get confused that they think the domine and the skidare, the ago, have to overlap each other, which they don't. For most people, they don't. There's a gap, all right? Now, I'm a reasonably average height person. For Japanese standards, and 6'3". No, I'm like 173 centimeters tall, so that's like 5'7", 8", something like that, right? So I'm not massively tall. In Europe, in Japan, I'm like the same size as everybody, a little bit bigger than a lot of people. But basically, there's a small gap between the top of my domine and the bottom of my ago. If I was taller, that gap would simply be bigger, and that's not a problem. All right. And if I was shorter, it would be closer. Okay. And obviously for women, that can be that can be variable again. All right. So because the hip position's in a different place, so women tend to wear the hakama a bit higher, so they need a longer hakama. All right, because the hips are generally a bit higher. And therefore the tare might sit a little bit higher. So therefore the do might sit a little bit higher. All right. So then there might not be as big a gap between the bottom of the ago and the top of the domine as you might expect on a very tall person. But it doesn't matter all that much. It doesn't matter all that much. The Bogu fits together quite well. Once you're used to wearing it and you're wearing it properly, all right, and your kamae is good, all right, that's the hard one, then it's still quite easy to move around freely in. So, you know, what I would just say is you don't get locked into this idea that the Bogu, in terms of the relative position of where the ago sits, where the mune sits, and where the tare is, that's like locked and it has to be the same on everybody. It doesn't. It's slightly variable because it's dependent on body shape. All right. You know, some people get a little bit. They sort of overthink it a bit, and they're like, "Oh, I'm like a little bit taller than everybody else." Now, I'm not talking about people who are like massive, yeah. I'm talking about people who are like, you know, maybe just over 180 or something like that, centimeters. I'm talking, so like around 6 foot something. And they're like, "Oh, I need a specially designed mune that's like 3 centimeters taller, so that the gap is like the same as on everyone else." You don't need that. It's normal for taller people to have a slightly bigger gap between the bottom of the ago and the top of the domine. All right. Yeah. Okay, right. Next one. By the way, Instagram Live, welcome if you're just joining us. If this is the first time you're watching Kendo Rant Live, by the way, pop a comment in there saying, first time, something like that. But in the meantime, you can also write questions in the live comments as well. And I will answer them. We don't have loads to get through today, to be fair, so it'd be pretty cool if some people pop some in the live, so we can pad the show out a bit. I think we'll be all right though, because the questions we got are pretty long. Hi Fish Sensei, thank you for your amazing work spreading Kendo across the globe. It's not me, it's the YouTube ninjas. It's you guys that's spreading Kendo across the globe, right? All I'm doing, all right? It says, as the next line says, especially with the help of the well-placed ninja robots. There you go. But it's, you know, all I'm doing is I'm just putting stuff out there. It's you guys that interact with it. Right, it's you guys that interact with it, like it, share it, subscribe it, comment on it, stuff like that. And that's what does it, all right? So it's not me, it's you. It's you, all right? So thank you. As I begin preparing for my own sikdan, looking to do it in Japan, I've been really curious about your journey. Would you be open to sharing a bit about it? Did you find that there was a particular meta, certain way the successful candidates demonstrate their understanding or mindset that helped guide your preparation? What were some of the biggest challenges you faced and what helped you push through them? To be honest, there are definitely some nerves about doing it in Japan, especially with the perceived difference in physical and technical level. I'd love to hear what the experience was like for you and if there was anything that helped you mentally or technically adjust to that context. Thanks. Okie dokie. Right. I think this is a great question. Right. So let's talk about my journey. In terms of grading, right, I popped this, somebody commented on it as well, but I did my up to 4th dan I did here in the UK, and then I did my 5th dan in Japan because I lived there at the time. I did my 6th dan shortly after I moved back to the UK, and I did it in France, and then my 7th dan I really wanted to do it in Japan, so I did it in Japan. So, yeah, it is, look, of course you're nervous about doing the 6th dan in Japan, right? I get that, I understand that, all right? And it is a fact that and it's one of the reasons I wanted to challenge 7th dan in Japan, was because I knew it would be a bigger challenge for me, if nothing else, based on the additional pressure I felt like I would feel, because, you know, obviously I'd have to invest a lot into going there. I knew that the number of candidates would be, you know, there'd be a lot of candidates, and you know, I'm relatively young for a person testing for 7th dan. So, you know, people testing for 7th dan my age are likely to be, you know, good, right? Yeah, But like if we're talking about sixth dan, and my wife Miyuki, she passed her sixth dan on the same day I passed the seventh dan in Japan too. So you know, obviously we worked on that a lot together. And like the criteria for sixth dan and seventh dan are very close. They're very similar in lots of ways. But in terms of like a particular meta or certain way successful candidates demonstrate their understanding, right? I think as I was preparing for my sixth dan and as I was preparing for my seventh dan, I obviously and as I was helping Miyuki prepare for her sixth dan as well, I spent a lot of time watching sixth dan exams. Japanese ones mainly, right? Because we knew we were going to do it there, right? We knew we was going to do it there. And trying to examine what the difference between the people who passed and the people who failed was. And invariably, the people who failed tended to be people that that were kind of acting or performing kendo in their own little bubble, all right? So they were acting on their own sort of impulses only, rather than interacting with their opponent, trying to, you know, trying to create. And I said this in the I think it was a feedback video I did yesterday. That I'm going to make this into a short, actually, because I think it's really important. But how at that level, the waza has to be created rather than it has to happen. All right. So it's not that the waza happens, but the waza has to be created. It has to be constructed. It has to come from somewhere. All right. And you know, look, I went. You know. I've seen people who are very good kendoka, very good, all right? And like, and I went and watched the sixth dan exam in Fukuoka last year as well, actually. And there's people I knew there, people who were, and there was others, like, and it's really interesting when you get down to the younger people doing it, people who are in the 20s doing sixth dan, right? And they're real good. And I'm talking about some of these people like all Japan level players, right? And they're failing. And there's a couple of reasons that they're failing. One is obviously like when you're like 28 and you're doing sixth dan, like the field is a tough field. You know what I mean? Especially you're doing it in a place like that, right? In the middle of Kyushu. It's not really middle, northern Kyushu. Anyway, but also, a lot of them were just battering the other people and weren't really demonstrating the hinkaku, the dignified construction of the waza, right? So, I think that that's the most important thing, and you've got to really. I think that's where the penny's got to drop you at some point, and of course, paired hand in hand with that is you have to have adequate technical ability. All right, and I think I mentioned this a little bit last week as well, in that I think sometimes when people are preparing for higher grades, they focus a lot on the new criteria, which is like application of Seme, idea of, aiki, di, these sort of things, making sure that, as I said, the waza is constructed and doesn't just happen by accident. They focus on that and they sort of forget everything else. And I don't mean forget, I mean like forget to concentrate on it. So, I was very conscious, both when I was preparing for sixth dan and seventh dan, that not only did I have to understand my interaction with my opponent and how I was participating in that, But at the same time, I also spent a lot of time focusing on my kihon and making sure that my technical ability didn't drop. And if not, it not only didn't drop, I wanted it to improve. Okay. So that so that I didn't go out there and it didn't look like I hadn't been focusing on proper technique, because technique and kihon is super important even at the very high levels. So I think that's the thing. I think I'm not saying it's meta or something like that, but you're asking what the meta is for passing the Shodan exam. I think one, you have to have the good kihon. You have to have the good kihon. You have to care about improving your kihon. Two, you have to care about creating the waza together with your partner, rather than trying to just do waza because you decided you wanted to do it. That doesn't mean you can't decide which waza you want to do. In fact, to some extent, you do have to do that. You want to do this particular waza, then you have to make it happen so that it can be created, right? So, but at the same time, you can't get your heart set on that and lock that in, because that won't work either. So, it's a bit of a shame, really. I'm not allowed to post the footage from my 7th Dan exam, because that's the rules from the ZNKR. But it would be nice to kind of watch over it and explain some of this stuff, because, some of the successful waza that I managed to make, thinking back to mine in my first tachiai, I made a suriage men, I made a men kaishido, I made 2 kote men, I made I think it was 2, no, it was 1 kote kara men, and then 1 kote kaishi men. And then in my second tachiai, I did a kote kaishi men. I did more waza, but they weren't as successful. I'm talking about the successful one. Kote kaishi men, aigote men. I think that was it. Oh no, I did suriage men as well. So a lot of oji waza actually. But I did try, shikake waza as well. Shikake waza worked in my first one. But it was a case of trying to figure out how the opponent was reacting, and I didn't just wait for them to come at me with men so I could do suriage men or kote kaishi men. I had the feeling, based on my intuition and experience, that they were hunting for kote, for example. So I encouraged them to do so. They did, and that was how I was able to do aigote men or kote kaishi men. Same with the men when I did the men kaishido. And then with my shikake waza, it was a case of, I didn't manage to do any debana waza, by the way. Tried, but didn't manage. When I did the shikake waza, for example, I hit at the kote, and I managed to do it at a point where they weren't able to react. So they did this, and then I immediately followed the men. The men was the ippon. So that's how that worked. So what I'm saying is it wasn't just random stuff that I was just throwing out there to see what would happen based on what I just wanted to do. I was watching them, seeing what they would do, seeing how they would react to my approach and the movements of my shinai and movements of my body, and I'd use that to select waza in order to try to make the ippon, right? Again, it had to be created. What were some of the biggest challenges that I faced and helped me push through them? Biggest challenges I faced were, there's a lot. But obviously, I think the biggest challenge I faced was having the confidence as to whether I could pass or not. But the only way you can push through that is to do more keiko. And obviously, I spent some time in Japan before the exam practicing, and I'm very lucky that I have a very good network of people who can help me. And the two things that really helped me pass my last grading, I know you're talking about 6th Dan, I'm talking about 7th Dan, but it's the same idea, is because it was similar for my 6th Dan, to be fair. one is I'm very lucky to have a friend who is the same age as me and is already the 7th dan and is a very, very, very good kendoka, all right, all Japan level kendoka, and he helped me an awful lot. Practicing with him was really, really useful. And then 2 was I had access to some of the best senseis in the world. And then when I say that, I mean like a few days before the actual Shinsa, I was able to go to their dojo and actually receive the keiko from them, because I really feel like practicing with the senseis like that is super important. Okay, right, we've got a question here from Creativity Runs Free. Could you please give advice and tips for female practitioners on tenuchi? Often hearing you should hit harder, use tenuchi, especially in dynamic hits or light without sound. Thank you. Yeah, this is a really great question and I like it a lot. And I appreciate you asking it. All right. I think anyone who follows me will know how sort of important women's kendo is to me, because it's like I'm outnumbered 3-1 in this house. Well, 2-1 at the minute because one of them's in Japan. But you know, but a large part of my, of my kendo experience is practicing with women, and it is something that, and like I say, my daughter is at a girls' school, and she's learning kendo from the best women kendoka in the world. So it's something that I've got my finger on the pulse with a little bit, you know. So I think it is something that's really interesting as a question in terms of how you can improve the tenuchi. And what you're asking is not necessarily how can you improve the tenuchi. What you're asking is how you can improve what's called datotsuryoku, all right, which is hitting power. Yeah. So how can you make a solid, strong strike that makes a good sound, all right, without just bashing, right? And the answer is to make the strike has to be sharp, all right, sharp. So part of it is in the tenuchi, but second is in the, because this is something that Miyabi, my eldest daughter, she struggled with quite a bit, sort of at times, especially with hikiwaza and suriage waza. She's alright with kakiwaza. In fact, sometimes she was a bit on the heavy-handed side, but these days she's not. But she's you know, she's got this experience as well. It has to be sharp, but secondly, and I think probably more importantly, it's not about so much what you do with your hands, it's more about what you do with your feet and your hips and your body, all right? So I really think that and this isn't unique to female kendoka. This is everybody. The sharp, powerful strike, and part of the reason that we even do fumikomi, all right, that part of the reason we even do that is to help us improve the strength of our strike, all right? And that's done by, and this is going to sound really weird and out there, but effectively you kind of transfer your body weight and your momentum into the tip of the shinai at the point of impact, all right? So that you can hit very quickly. That's why these great players, they hit very quickly. It's very sharp. There's power, but it's not like a dull thud. It's a sharp snap, and it's because that body weight is transferred into the tip of the shinai at the moment of striking. So what this is all about here, it is a little bit about the tenuchi, of course it is, but it's also as much about how you use your left leg. Make sure your left leg is ready and pushes your hips forward as you strike, so that your body weight can be transferred to the shinai. Now, one thing you can do as an exercise, right, is you can, I'm trying to find a prop that I can show you with. I've got a marker here and a pen, right? You can use your shinai, right? Use your shinai, and then like you can use a tabletop, a hard surface. If you've got a friend, they can hold the shinai up like this, and you put it across like this, right? And then all you're gonna do is, I'm gonna see if I can show you on the camera here. I don't think I can show you, right? All we're gonna do is we're gonna just flex the shinai like this, all right? I'm pressing it against the wall, that's why I was doing that. But like essentially what we're going to try and do is, this pen won't flex, so that's why it's not going to be a great example. But what we're going to try and do is press the shinai into the hard surface and kind of get that feeling for pushing your body weight onto the tip of the shinai, all right? I think that's a really good practice to get that feeling, and because then what you need to do is then link that to the point of impact of your strike, and then you'll get sharp strikes that are fast, crisp. They don't break the other person's hand and or head or brain, you know, you know, they make a nice sound, and they're easily to be judged as ippon. Okay. And it's never, ever, 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 ever accept that, and it's one thing that's a bit of a, I wouldn't go as far as say it's a pet peeve, but it's a bit, you know, it's just wrong. Never accept someone that says, oh, well, it's a woman or female can't, so they can't hit as hard. Like, it's not about how hard, you know, physical strength can be an advantage in Kendo. There's no doubt about that. Right, physical strength can definitely be an advantage in Kendo, but not for that. All right, it's not necessarily for that. All right, I'm telling you now, the best women Kendo guy in the world, right? They hit with sharp, powerful strikes. All right. The next question says, with regards to pressing the shinai on the surface, do you use pressure on both hands or only left or right? Both. All right. Focus with the left. Don't use the right too much. But if you think about your tenuchi has to come from both hands, right? Okay. So I would squeeze with both hands as I press to flex that shinai. All right. But focus more on the left hand, particularly the bottom three fingers, all right? But don't ignore the right hand, because the right hand plays a part as well. It's super important, actually. We always say in Kendo, don't use too much right hand, don't use too much right hand, and it's super true. It really is. But at the same time, the role that the right hand plays in performing the correct striking action via tenuchi, like, you can't ignore it. All right, you can't ignore it. All right, because that is what gives you the control. That's what gives you the sharpness. All right, that's why Shodan is so hard. All right, and that's why so many Shodan Nito players, they'll smash your Kote and it's like you've broken your arm, because they haven't quite, you know, they don't have that control that you get from both hands. All right, brilliant Shodan players, obviously, they get better at that. All right, they get better at that. But you know, I've received the Kote off some of the best Shodan players in the world, and it still plumbing hurts. No, even when it's proper sharp. Right. Anyway, next one. Hello, Sensei. Could you tell us what made you want to start practicing Kendo in the first place, and some of the highs and lows you went through towards the beginning of your training? Okay, I started Kendo because a friend of mine used to do Kendo. They gave up Kendo, and I saw the shinai at the house, and I was like, oh, that's kind of cool. I remember that from a video game that I used to play when I was a kid called Budokan, and I had Kendo in it. Like, that's from that. That's super cool. And he was like, yeah, I used to do it, but the club sort of finished, so you can have it, sort of thing. I was like, wow, cool, thank you. Creativity runs free says thanks a lot. No problem. I hope it's helpful. I kind of rambled a bit on it, but you know, it's off the top of my head. But yeah, I think that's how it is anyway. But anyway, so my pal gave me the shinai, and it was like really like serendipitous, is that the word? Like lucky. I should just say lucky. Stop trying to sound smarter than I am. It was really lucky because basically it was like kind of destiny. I went home. I was 19 years old. I logged into the internet, dialed into the internet, which is what you had to do, right? Load up the modem, right? And then basically searched Kendo near me. And a week later, basically, I was very lucky that a week later, a new Kendo club was about a half an hour drive from where I was opening and starting a beginner's course, and that's how I went along. I went along, and that was it. I loved it, and I never turned back. In terms of highs and lows, I went through towards the beginning my training. I've been through a lot of, and it depends what you call the beginning. Like highs, of course, was like, I remember winning my first tournament, which is pretty cool. I won the Q grade championship here. Like after I've been doing Kendo for like 10 months and got the Shodan the next day. My sensei gave me the best advice. Like I said to him, I said, Sensei, I want to do my Shodan down in London. But there's a Shiai the day before, and I'm worried about kind of doing the Shiai and then doing the grading if it's going to kind of mess up my mindset and stuff like that. Like, I don't want to do the kind of Shiai stuff in the grading and stuff like, I was worried about something because I was a beginner. And he was like, well, yeah, there is that, but if you win this, if you win the tournament, you're not going to fail the Shodan, right? And he was right. He was right. So that was high. That was a high. And then another was, I've had lots of highs. I've been very, very lucky. I've been very blessed in my Kendo life. Being invited to join the national team training. That was a huge ambition of mine after watching the World Championships in Glasgow. Being selected to go, receiving medals at the European Championships, doing all right in the World Championships, even going to the World Championships. All this stuff was huge highs. Meeting my wonderful wife through Kendo, all these are brilliant highs. Training in Japan at some of the, I've had amazing experiences doing Kendo in Japan and continue to. I've been so blessed. I can't, practicing with the best senseis, the best players in the world, who have been nothing but kind and accommodating for me. Lows, I've had plenty of lows as well. I won't get into anything too specific, like as it is, but obviously, there's difficulties that come with gaining a public profile, especially when it comes in a small Kendo community. And especially with once you start to rise in ranks and stuff, some people don't like it. There's like political nonsense, so I try to distance myself from that a bit. But the other lows I've had real hard times. Obviously, it's not all fun. I've had loads of times when I thought Kendo was horrible. I hate it. Why am I even doing this? I've had that a lot. Of course I have. I've cried during the keiko. Not ashamed to admit that. It was that was near the start of my, I'd say near the beginning. I mean, I was like third dan, so I was a few years in, but it was like my first proper training trip to Japan, and I went to train at a high school. I'm not going to name the high school, but it's a famous one that's really really strong. And that was hard. That was really hard. I used to go there before the training. I was like 10 years older than some of the kids as well. But I was still only young. I was still like 25, 26 something. But I'd go there and like I'd arrive there before the keiko, and maybe it'd be like 20 minutes before the keiko started, and I'd just go and sit in the toilet and just be like, oh, I don't want to do this. Like, just, I don't want to go in. I don't want to go in there. I don't know why I'm subjecting myself to this, because it was a really tough emotional experience, actually. And it was only like a month or so, but I'd go there and I'd have these, and this is like, it was like a humbling experience, super humbling experience for me. So I'd go there. I was like the captain of the GB team at the time. I was like, I'd won all this stuff in Europe and stuff. And I went there and like I practiced with these kids, and I couldn't keep up with them. Like, there was parts where the sensei came and he was like, Andy, you can just sit out now. And I was like, okay. And I went home and I told my wife, I was like, oh, sensei said I didn't have to do that one. And he was like, oh, yes, he doesn't want you to disturb the other kids. I was like, oh, because I couldn't keep up with them, right? And yeah. There was one particular keiko there where it was like we were just doing kirikaishi over and over and over, and it was 40 kirikaishi, 40 pon kirikaishi, over and over and over and over. It seemed like forever, and like it got to the point where like my fingers were like pins and needles, like just, you know, numb. And I was crying, man. I'm not gonna lie. I was crying. I hated it. I wanted to stop, but I couldn't stop because it'd be embarrassing. Because a lot of, you know, no, it was, you know, it wasn't hard, but like, you know, people had set it up so I could go there, and I couldn't just wimp out, right? But it was tough, and Sensei was like, he had these shoshigi, right, the wooden blocks that signal the start and finish. Every 10 minutes he'd walk out of his room just to show us the blocks to make us think it was going to finish, and then he'd just disappear again. That was tough. You saw him come in, you'd be like, oh, please. Oh no, he's gone again. It was super tough. So that was a tough experience. I had I had lots like that. I had another where Sensei I really, really respected and was really kind to me and did a lot for me. He just said to me one day, I think you were better when you first got here. Like, this is like when I first started practicing with him. That was like it wasn't like physically hard, but it was a kind of a bit of a crushing like blow, you know. So there's lots of stuff, you know. It's been rough, you know. But as I say, I've had lots of highs too, you know. I've been very lucky that, you know, and this is why I'm always hesitant to comment when we talk about gradings. I'm kind of a bit hesitant to comment too much about the experience of failing gradings, because I've been very fortunate to not experience that yet. But I do still think it's an important aspect. But, you know, I wasn't expecting to pass the 7th Dan the first time, actually. I kind of thought I'd pass 6th Dan, if I'm honest with you. I had my reservations, of course. I didn't really expect to pass 7th Dan first time. I thought it'd take me a couple of tries. But I managed it. So, so that was a high, should we say. So, you know, many of us have been there. Thank you for sharing your experiences, the highs and lows. Yeah, well, this is it. That's what Kendo's about, right? That is Kendo for you, right? That is what it's all about. That's how it makes us better people. So there we go. Hi, Andy. While visiting my second dojo, I was asked to be motodachi for some juniors doing uchikomi. In the first round, I simply opened up for the junior to cut. Sensei then mentioned I needed to be more enticing, so in the second round, I stepped in aggressively, making it obvious for the kids to cut. Afterwards, he gently let me know that I still don't really know how to entice. Looking back, I see both approaches were opposite ends of the spectrum, one too passive, one too forceful. And he was absolutely right. Up until now, I mainly just stepped in and hoped for a reaction, but I'm slowly realising there's a lot more to Seme than I understand. Well, this is true. I know this might be a bit advanced my level as Shodan, perhaps more in the realm of 3rd or 5th Dan, but really appreciate any pointers on how you better draw a cut from an opponent. Even just simple things I can focus on during Uchikomi or Jigeko will be really helpful. Thank you so much. So like when you're practicing with juniors, and I don't know if you mean like kids or if you mean people lower level than you, but if you're receiving the Uchikomi, and look, you know, yeah, Shodan, I wouldn't expect you to be like really concentrating too much on deep concepts of like how to draw, you know, strikes on people. But yeah, instead of just like passively opening this way, you need to engage with them, right? But it doesn't mean you have to be aggressive, rah, like this, yeah, yeah. But still, engage, open, yeah. Hey, come on, yeah. And it has to have that feeling from you, because this is super great practice as well. Like, especially the guys that were talking about doing 6th Dan, this is super great practice receiving the Uchikomi, all right, receiving the Uchikomi. Because, you know, that's a really basic level of interaction, invite, yeah? Rather than just, yeah, but you have to try to generate some aiki, some connection with your partner, even though it's you know, it's coming, right? There's no quick answer for this either. I can't just say like, oh, we'll just do this and it'll fix the issue. You're gonna have to figure this out. You're gonna have to fumble around with it a bit and try and figure out what the best way works. But what I want you to try to figure out is try not to think of it too much of as, oh, I'm too passive or I'm too aggressive. Try to think of it as, am I building a relationship? Am I building a connection with the other person? And is the other person finding it easy to practice Uchikomi Geiko with me? All right? Are they finding it easy or is it difficult for them? All right? Is it janky? Is it disconnected? You know, that sort of thing. That's what I think you need to concentrate on, and then with practice, you'll automatically come to understand it. I'm sure. I am sure. Wow, we've still got questions to go. Right. Okay, that's because I talk loads about myself. Kendo plus old. I get the practicality of it and the reality of it, and probably should feel honoured, blessed, and appreciative of it. But being relegated to the 50-year-old and above division for individuals still remains a challenging pill to swallow. Many tournaments provide an option for 50 and above. This being choose either your rank and Dan level or the 50 and above division. But one, or admittedly I, gets the feeling that our dojo and the tournament host would rather you choose your age division. And I get it, the practicality, time considerations of running a tournament, and reality that one might be in 20-year-olds in their head, but sorry, it's more of a lament than a question, but just dealing with the subject yet again, thank goodness for the mixing of age and ranks in team divisions, I guess. Care to comment? Okay, so the thing about this is it's really location specific, all right? It's really location specific and tournament specific, all right? I've you know, I've been in a couple of tournaments that are age ranged, and then I've been in ones that are rank ranged, and I've been in open ones. All right, and I don't find a big difference between them all that much, but it depends. It depends. It's difficult because I don't mean this in a sort of. I don't mean this in a negative way whatsoever, all right? Like in Japan, Shiai there, you have the same thing. You'll have some Shiai that are governed by age and some that are governed by rank, all right? And some that are just open, all right? Most of them are most of them for adults. I'm trying to think back to when I used to compete there. I've done both. Most of them tended to be rank based. Most tend to be open. Most tend to be totally open. And some are even profession based, of course, but it's a different population, right? So maybe they're mainly age based, perhaps there. But the thing is, in Japan, like everyone who's like, like most people that are doing Kendo in their 40s or 50s are already like 5th or 6th dan, so they're all already a similar rank anyway. And rank plays much of a lower like prominence in everyone's Kendo experience, except 8th dan, than it does in the West. So yeah, I mean, I think here you need to just enter the one that you feel more comfortable in. If you can't enter both, if you're not allowed to enter both, then just enter the one you feel more comfortable in. If you feel like you want to enter the Dan division, then enter the Dan division. I don't think that's a problem. I can't imagine that anyone like from the organizer of the dojo is like, really? Oh no, you should enter the age one. I don't think it's probably as bad as you think, in terms of that. I think, you should enjoy it and do the division that you feel is more appropriate and more enjoyable for you. Definitely. So, but I don't really care. If it was me, I'm like, I'll go in a 40s and above division, which I've done before, or I'll go in a Dan based one. I guess I can do that now. Actually, there's a couple of 7th dan tournaments in Europe, so maybe I'll have a go at those. We'll see. What do you recommend as the simplest way of explaining the importance of kihon to beginners, specifically elementary and middle school age? Any analogies or comparisons that might make it easier? It's difficult, isn't it? It's difficult, especially to kids, right? It's really, the reason it's difficult, right, is because teaching, I'm going to say something that's going to upset people, but it is what it is, right? The Kendo's designed to be taught in Japan, right? It's designed with Japanese people in mind, right? So kids doing Kendo in Japan, you don't need to explain the importance. You just tell them to do it, and they have to do it. Like nobody cares about whether they think it's important or not. But that's not how it works here, because we don't have that kind of education system for a start. So I don't have a great deal of advice on that front, but I mean, I think all you can really try and do is explain to them that I think what you have to try to first understand is what is their motive for practicing Kendo a bit. And if they're wanting to be, are they trying to get better? Are they trying to be good? Are they trying to be, win the matches, win the shiai and stuff like that? And if that is the case, then they have to understand that that's the only way to do it is by focusing on the kihon. But at the same time, if I'm honest with you, the fact is, don't get me wrong, there's plenty of kids in Japan, there's plenty of kids, in my experience at least in Japan, that like, the senseis will make them do kihon and they just coast through it, because they don't give they don't like Kendo, they're not enjoying Kendo, they're just doing it because their mom said they have to or whatever. So they don't really care. So they don't really get very good either. The kids that get really good at Kendo tend to be I'm talking in Japan, of course, in one or two categories. One, the kids that really like Kendo, right? That really enjoy Kendo and they like it. They're kind of rare. And then two, the kids with the really scary parents. So yeah. Whereas I feel like here, and I don't think it's much different to to adults is you just have to try to encourage them, get them to do it, and you just can't place too high expectations on them. And then you have to judge them as individuals and think, okay, well, this person's really engaging, this person's not engaging as much. And then you know a little bit more about how sort of, you know, how far you can take it with each person, if that makes sense. But yeah, it's difficult. They're not. And look, let's not pretend, right? You know, when I was, this is one of the things I often talk about on here. People often ask me, this is a question that's reasonably common on this show, is, and if you could go back and tell your like IQ self or Shodan self some piece of advice, what would it be? It'd be like, don't skip a footwork practice. Right? Because I didn't understand the importance of kihon either. I didn't care about it. I just wanted to hit with the shinai as fast as I could and as much as I could and try to win the matches as much as I could. That's all I cared about when I was, you know, like probably up to like 4th dan. I didn't care, right? Because I was getting positive feedback in other ways. And it wasn't until I sort of hit a wall, and especially by like going to Japan, that I realized, oh crikey, no, actually everyone was right when they were talking about how important the basics are. So, you know, there's some element of you can try to explain it, but a lot of it's got to come down to individual realization. Like they've got to realize it themselves. So yeah, I know it's not a great answer for you, but I think that's a difficult problem. I'm not going to lie to you. I think that's a tough problem to deal with. Sensei, thank you for all the new content the past few weeks. I can't tell you how much I appreciate the new format of rants, feedback videos, training tips, motivational shorts, and especially the photos explaining Kendo principles. I'm glad you liked that, you know. I'm glad you guys liked that. Well, this person likes it anyway. Yeah, I mean, if you've been seeing it, you guys on Instagram, if you've been seeing the stuff we've been putting up, the Kendo concepts, that's something we started a couple of weeks ago to see how people like enjoyed it, and people seem to be. Thank you for the helpful answer. No, I wish I could give you an easier answer to work with, but I'm glad it's helpful. But yeah, you guys on Instagram and watching on YouTube, if you see the Instagram stuff we put on, we put like the different Kendo concepts, we introduce them, and we're trying to do like ones that are a little bit less known. We could easily like just do Zanshin or like, you know, Fudoshin, something like that. But we're trying to work with ones that are a little bit less common, and sort of introduce them. So, you know, let us know in a comment if you like those. Kendo is live is more than just a hashtag, and you show us that with every video and post. Thank you very much. My question is actually from the Kendo feedback video we posted yesterday. On the first clip, you gave extremely helpful advice on the Seme for subconsciously pressuring your opponent to attack men or Kote based on raising and lowering the Kensen. Yeah, I mean, that's just one way. On the second clip, you commented about how one Kendoka was not properly blocking an attempt at Kote. What are some proper ways to block when you're pressuring your opponent to hit Kote? Is it even appropriate to block, or is it better to attempt Nuki Kote or Suriaga Kote like Kata 6? Jaku Nihon. I don't know if I'm pronounced that right, but yeah, I like the philosophy potion page. Good, thank you very much, thank you. Yeah, I mean, so what we were talking about yesterday in the feedback video was one of the guys was they were sort of expecting them to do if I remember this right, they were expecting them to do Kote, so they were going to do Kote Nuki Men, right? No, it wasn't that. It wasn't that. It was the opponent came for Kote. I think they thought they were coming for men, so they raised their hands to block the men. The Kote missed, and then they hit this sort of Atouchi. And I said that, like, although that's a valid strike, like, it's not like a created waza. And that's what I was talking about. And then I said that, like, blocking like this isn't a good way to block Kote, because your Kote is totally exposed. All right? Now, you said it's even appropriate to block. Of course it's appropriate to block. You can't let them hit you. Yeah? And nobody's a Jedi, right? Maybe there are some, but, you know, you can't do waza every single time. Yeah? Of course it's appropriate to block. It's okay to block. I've said that loads, all right? but it's how you do it and the strategy of doing it, all right? You don't want to do it like this. We've got room to do this here without knocking it out. Not like this, yeah? Okay? In principle, the way you want to defend yourself is to keep the Kensen forward, all right? Okay? If they're coming for your Kote, this way. If they're coming for your men, this way, okay? But you got to be careful, because you get it wrong, they're going to hit you on the other side, okay? So blocking doesn't come without its disadvantages, just like attacking doesn't, all right? But yeah, it's perfectly acceptable to block, but you just have to do it in a sensible way that's strategically sound, all right? That's the takeaway, all right? Not this way, okay? Bringing the hands up and backwards, all right? And also you need to use your feet, your footwork, okay? Secret Marcel says, hello, Sensei, lucky to have caught your live content. I actually have some questions. I'm currently starting to work on my my 6th time. You don't have to mention the number where you wrote it there. So in 3 years. Okay, cool. Due to language barrier, I haven't been able to understand what my senses have told me. Could you perhaps give me some pointers? What are the difference between 5th and 6th dan exams? All right. Forget 5th dan exams because you're going for 6th dan, okay? So it doesn't matter what you have to do in a 5th dan exam because you've done it, right? And I don't want you to dwell on that, all right? I'll be honest, I didn't really know what I was supposed to do for 5th dan when I did mine, all right? I just went and tried to do the best I could. It turned out all right. We talked about this a bit earlier in the show, but basically, for 6th dan, all right, you have to understand that there's a relationship between you and your partner, all right? And waza have to be created as from that relationship, or we could say as a result of interactions made during that encounter, all right? So what that means is you can't be attacking randomly, all right? You can't just be throwing stuff out there because you've decided to throw stuff out there, yeah? You can't just act independently of what is going on the other side, all right? So you have to. The other thing, this is a super small practical tip, but don't say yeah, don't do your hase like after you've got to your isoku, right? You do all that yeah here, you can do it here yeah, then here, all right? And here, there has to be some kind of tension between the two of you, all right? And that's not posing. It's not posing, which lots of people do. And posing's not the right word, all right? But a lot of people will, like, put it on. Oh, I'm doing Seme. I'm doing Seme. No, it's not about what it looks like. It's about what happens over there in front of you, right? So it's about how you interact with the other person. So, you know, people will be like, you know, oh yes, this is me doing Seme. It's like, it's not. This is me doing Tame. That's not what Tame is, all right? It's not waiting or showing, right? It's not showing, yeah? It's connecting, yeah? Tame is being ready immediately to strike whenever you need to. And that comes from that tension, all right? So, this is super important, all right? And what I want you to do to work towards that, you got 3 years, all right? When you do Jigeko, right, ask yourself, are the waza that I'm using based on entirely my own choices, or are they based on information I'm getting from the other side, right? And then, once you realize that you're doing waza that are and it doesn't matter if they're successful or not for the time being, right? Then what I want you to try to figure out is, how can I influence what the other side is going to do so I can do the waza I want to do, all right? And I'll tell you something, this is something people overlook. This is definitely something people overlook, right? You'll get a lot out of practicing with peers, like of the same, you know, other people who are the same level as you, but you'll get a lot out of practicing with juniors as well, people lower grade than you. I did a lot of my preparation for 6th Dan practicing with high school kids, all right? Because they were easy to influence, all right, through my Seme, all right? So I could get them to respond to me, all right? So it gave me a chance to practice that, all right, against engaging partners, all right? So that's that, right? And then the second thing, as I said earlier in the show, don't neglect your kihon. Do not neglect your kihon. It's such a shame when people will get to the grading and they got the Seme quite good, they got the interaction quite good, and then they're like their kentai is out of whack, you know. And you'd be surprised how much you see that, right? So don't neglect your kihon. Your kendo at 6th Dan has to be dignified, okay? Has to be dignified, all right? That's it, okay? And that comes from good kihon, good basics, good correct form, plus dignified interaction and creation of waza through that mutual interaction with your partner, okay? And I'm sure you'll do fine. I hope it answers. Okay, there we go. We've been filming for just over an hour. What a great show. I thought we only had a few questions, but we had some really in-depth stuff there. I thought we talked about some great stuff, some great questions coming in from the chat as well. Don't forget, you guys on YouTube, to like, share, subscribe. Follow us on Instagram so you can join the live stream next time, all right? There will not be a show next week, I'm afraid. No show next week. I will be at the European Kendo Championships. We will be there with KendoStar. We've got a stall there. It's a bit of a different stall, though. It's a bit of a different stall to what you're probably used to. It's more of a promotional store than a selling store, but we've got some good deals on, so come and see us if you're at the European Championships. Thank you very much, everyone, for joining us. Shop at KendoStar, and I'll see you all next time. Bye bye. Bye Instagram. Bye bye.